Hi, so today for our Spotlight series, we get to interview Mr. Mike Jiang from Proper Rose Garden. How you doing today, Mike?
What's up, Warren? I'm doing all right. Hanging out. Sorry about the environment I'm in. Just always running around, so it's a little hard.
You're a busy, important guy, so you got stuff going on. You're trying to make people happy with your wonderful desserts, right?
Yeah, pretty much. That's I aim to please.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you 7 questions, and I'm curious to hear your response, and we'll all learn from them. So, first question: what do you attribute your growth to?
Definitely growth was strongly attributed to social media. We're in a unique situation in today's day that we have the ability to reach millions of people that
Hmm.
are not in front of us. The digital age is upon us, and we have to learn how to adapt. Otherwise, we just we get left in the dust with all the people who are doing it. So I think Proper Rose Garden was very lucky. We hit the market during a time when everybody was on their phones, COVID. There wasn't too much to do, and we were one of the first to reopen, and we just captivated thousands of people at the same time. And we were a brand new concept that Houston has never really had before. So yeah, I think with all the added, um, what's the right word? Added, I guess, photography, aesthetically pleasing,
Hmm.
very,
Yeah.
very pleasing to the eye. Social media really took off for us. So I would say the growth is definitely attributed to that.
Well, it sounds like you must have, and I've seen some of your pictures, and I'm sure you have tons of video and stuff, and you obviously have something that intrigues people to come in. So, speaking of that, um, what makes your business unique, and why do customers choose you over potential competitors, which could be any restaurant or coffee shop, theoretically? Why do they choose you?
Right. So we pride ourselves in being unique. A lot of products that we serve, we were the first to bring it to the market. For example, the croffle, that's a croissant waffle. It was something that was very heavily popularized in Europe and Korea, and then it was brought over to the States. And then I'm originally from New York City, and I get a lot of inspiration from my friends, and I saw that I wanted to bring it here, and I arguably say the first to bring that. So we focus a lot on that. We focus on we have a thing that we say bougie on a budget, but we like to be bougie on a budget. Afternoon tea and high tea are predominantly known as very expensive experiences, exclusive. You need VIP status or you need reservations months ahead. We're not the Hilton, we're not the Hyatt. We strive ourselves on serving tea to everybody, the general public. You don't need a reservation to come in. You don't need to reserve anything. Our afternoon tea is served 24/7. It's always when if we're open, it's being served, and it's affordable. We don't charge an arm and a leg. We're definitely the most affordable afternoon tea experience in all of Houston. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of what sets us apart. We have it's like food for the people.
I love it. Bougie
Yeah,
on a budget.
bougie on a budget, exactly.
That is so cool. I love it. And so, can I ask you? Okay, this is not one of the 7 questions, but I'm very curious. How did you end up coming up with this concept and starting it? What
Mm.
motivated?
Yeah, so the concept was it's very strongly popularized in Asia. Obviously Asia is very influenced by European culture. Europeans did the whole afternoon tea. Well, there's high tea and then there's afternoon tea, right? High tea is typically the more upscale butler service. You're really paying quite a bit of money. It's going to be served with things like creme fraiche and caviar and little tiny finger sandwiches. And then there's the cousin, the afternoon tea. Afternoon tea is a lot more affordable. It's for pretty much everybody. And in Asia, there's a lot of these afternoon tea concept, like just cafes where they serve afternoon tea, but they also serve, finger foods like, popcorn chicken, dumplings, just a whole wide variety, something for everybody. I think that's really kind of where we came up with that idea. Um, I've always loved being in Houston, but when I first moved here, I remember having a lot of trouble finding places to just hang out with friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot of coffee shops, there's a lot of bars, there's a lot of restaurants, but you're not always in the mood for that stuff. And coffee shops, you don't meet up with a group of friends there, you know? You're not supposed to be screaming at each other while everyone's trying to study. Same thing with restaurants. Not You don't always want to eat, you know, because the amount of times I've been asked, "Hey, like, where do you want to go eat?" It's like, I'm not really hungry right now. It's just like, oh well, what now? So
Mm-hmm.
we really fall in the in betweens. We are specifically meant to be like a social spot.
Nice.
After dinner, you know, you finish dinner, you want to go somewhere. You don't want to necessarily go home yet. Just want to chat with your friends. You come to us. You grab a dessert, you grab a pot of tea, you grab anything really. We have so many different choices where you could just sit down and just chat. And we make the environment very friendly for that. So I think that's kind of, where that comes from, right? So yeah,
Hmm. That's
I
really
wanted something like that, a hangout spot, really.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's about the social as much as it is about the food, right?
It is. It's the experience. That's what we tell people. Like our
That's one.
restaurant is all about what you feel and how you feel when you're there and when you leave.
That's so cool. Okay, so if you were starting it over again, what would you do differently?
Oh man, live and learn. Hindsight's 2020. So I mean, so many different things. I would choose probably a different location, to be honest. I think a lot of our clientele does come from within the circle, the loop. You know, I think that is a huge contributing factor to business for us. So I think if I were to do it all over again, I'd definitely do a different location. Probably make it a lot bigger.
Hmm.
Our kitchen is like the size of a garage, so we would definitely expand on that. Probably have a little bit more privacy, more private rooms, more catering stuff.
Hmm.
Definitely, the second store will be a lot more efficient. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Well, and you built it from the ground up. You're starting with an open concept that you have to figure out. So that makes sense.
Exactly.
Right? You're
Right.
taking it up as you go, sort of.
We didn't have a roadmap. Everything was brand new to us. I've had businesses before, but I've never done a full service restaurant. Really was operating in the dark. So no roadmap. So, after operating for about almost 5 years now, we've really learned the tips and tricks of how to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, yeah. How about as an employer? What have you learned as an employer since you started your business?
Um, a lot. I mean, it's different. Everybody has a story, everybody has a background, every day is different. Um, I personally, I work with my employees. I'm on the floor with them.
Hmm.
I do everything I ask them to do myself. I truly do incorporate myself into their lives. I don't just, sit around and bark orders at people. I think that really attributes to respect and, mutual respect between each other. And if you can achieve that, that's when you really have a strong team. If they're looking out for your best interest when you're not around, that's how you kind of are able to build a team. So I learned that for sure. I worked at corporate for many years, so I know how it feels to not respect your manager or the people who are above you because they would never be able to do what you're doing. So yeah,
That's great. What a great way to motivate employees. Um, Not being afraid to jump in and do the same things they're doing, whatever it takes, right? To
exactly.
experience for the customer.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. It really builds trust and respect. That's great. So, how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business? How's that going for
I don't think there's a thing such thing as balance. It's really just you have to just make it work. My personal life is never balanced. It's always come second to me. My work life is always my first thing. Um, I'm on call 24/7 pretty much. Even when I'm not there, I'm there mentally. So you just have to find a way to incorporate things, incorporate your work into your life, find, staff that's willing to take the steps that need to be taken when you're not around, and trust that they'll follow through with it. So, I mean, it's really just it's incorporation. You're intermingling your personal into your professional, especially with restaurants. You really are. I mean, there's times where I will be out at brunch and I'll get a phone call and I'll immediately have to leave.
Mm.
So my friends understand this. I understand this. I don't get frustrated because it's part of the job, you know. It does suck sometimes, but you learn to cope, I guess you could say that's the right term.
Well, so so that's it sounds like you got the right attitude about owning a business and how you're going to have some flexibility and you
For
incorporate
sure.
which helps a lot. So I have one more question about employees, if you don't mind. So when you're trying to find the right employees, especially, and I think in this case, managers that can do something while you're gone and you can trust them, what do you look for?
So that's actually a very ironic question. And a lot of people do ask me this question, like, who's your manager? I don't actually truly believe in like full-time managers. When I hire my employees, I really look for leadership in all of them. And my team knows this, that we don't really have a manager. Like everybody is their own form of manager. And I know this sounds cheesy, but it's true. Like I empower all my employees the same way I empower any of them. None of them have more. And I've built a team that I really trust to make these solid decisions when I'm not around. Obviously, I do have senior staff, people who have been around with me a little bit longer, but
Sure.
I don't, we don't like to slap titles on people because sometimes it will essentially make them into a villain or like, oh, well, this is someone I can't be myself around. But I hire people based on their talents, their leadership, their trustability. So when I have these conversations with them, I give them the power to make these choices. And if, you know, unfortunately, sometimes they don't make the right choices. And if that happens, then me as the manager have to step in, right? But uh I've been lucky enough to build a team over the 4 years that I truly trust each individual in my, you know, restaurant to do what's best for the restaurant. So I don't really look for managers if that like specifically, you know, like I don't I truly believe that you should be your own manager, and if you can't prove that to me, then you don't belong on the team, you know?
Well, that's brilliant. So you're really just like the Ritz.
I'm
I mean,
I'm sorry?
you're like the Ritz. The Ritz,
The,
the Ritz employees, they can make their own decisions, right? At
that's
least
awesome.
all about the customer. So really, you're the same.
I strive. I mean, they know, you know, my team, they know me and my partners priorities. They know what we want. They know what's most important to us. And 99% of the time it will be the customer's satisfaction, you know. So they know they don't need to call me if they need to give away something free to make sure our customers happy. They know they don't need to ask me for discounts if you know it's to make sure someone leaves with a smile versus like being unhappy, you know. So yeah, I mean, yeah, in that sense, like I all of my employees have access to discounts, you know, comping, like we don't, you know, we trust them to make the right choices, you know.
Wow. So it sounds like everybody's crystal clear then on the vision of your restaurant, and that is
Yes.
make the customer happy, give them a good experience, and they'll come back.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's absolutely my number one priority. I know sometimes that might not be possible, but we absolutely do everything we can to try to make it happen. Um, you know, if and sometimes, you know, just customers have to understand they have to work with us, you know, it's within our limits, right? So,
Sure. So what
exactly.
about last question? Um, what about as a business owner? What are common misconceptions of being a business owner, and how do you address them?
Yeah, so I truly think that people glamorize the restaurant industry. Everybody wants to open a restaurant. Everybody wants something with food. Everybody wants something with that because it
Hmm.
seems fun. You know, it's all over the TV. It's, you know, all these TV shows and movies talk about it all the time, but it's tough. I mean, you know, any of my friends who ask me like, "Hey, I got this restaurant idea," and they pitch it to me, one of the first things I say is like, "Turn around and run away." Like it's not something that you could just want to do. You know, like you have to, it has to be something that you truly are willing to suffer for a severe long time before you can truly say, hey, like I think I made it. You know, like you got to be willing to, like, financially, mentally, your personal life, everything goes on hold. Um, Trying to do anything as a business owner, like I said, business has to come first, and you have to be willing to cope with that. If you can't, you're gonna have a really rough time. I've had friends who started businesses, not just restaurants, just a lot of different types of businesses that require a lot. I mean, there are businesses that don't require a lot from their owners, and that's great. If you found a secret recipe to that, I mean, tell me about it. I'd love to hear about it. But, restaurants specifically, it's a 24/7 thing. Even when the restaurants close, you're doing things. You're constantly going. So if you're thinking about doing it, really sit down and tell yourself, am I ready for this? Like, am I ready to just potentially suffer on all aspects of my life? Everything's going to go down. I mean, quality of life, I promise you, it's going to go down. And
Mm.
that might sound very pessimistic, but it's for a greater cause, right? You live and suffer for a couple of years in ways that people can't do, to live the rest of your life in ways that people will never be able to do too. So you look at it in that aspect, then yes, like, and that suffering is different for everybody. It comes in different forms and ways. Some people are lucky, they hit gold right off the bat. But it happens. But even when you're batting 100, I don't know if that's the correct terminology. I don't watch baseball. I'm sorry.
1,000, you're close,
But
100%.
even if you're batting, 10 out of 10, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're still, there's so much. It takes an army to run a restaurant. It truly does. And a million things can go wrong in any which day. You could be, riding rainbows one day, and the very next day you could be in a pit. So it's just it's so fast, and you have to know how to be flexible. That's my best advice.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned a lot today, and I really, really appreciate your time.
No problem, Warren. I hope you have a good day, man.
You too.